All right, what's up, everybody? This is John, also Jump Shot John from our little podcast things. I don't even know what to call them. Our little YouTube videos or audio sessions or whatever. And we actually decided just to record something, actually talking about the NBA instead of doing a fake interview. I'm here with Rebound Randy.
Hey guys, what's up?
And our buddy Mike stopped by today to help us out. He played Chris Humphries in the last interview. So we were just talking about what we think should happen with the NBA because we were just talking about expansion and stuff like that. And personally, I'd like to see a team in Pittsburgh. That is my thing.
I would too. From the hometown.
I would love to see an expansion team in Pittsburgh and Seattle. I think it'd be good to put a couple more teams here. But we were talking specifically about, the globalization of the game because you see the NBA going into China and going into Europe, and it's huge. Whenever we have other games in other places, they're sold out. So my question to you two is, do you feel the NBA could support a division in Europe? Now, what I read was there's going to be 4 teams, potentially anyway. There'd be one based out of London, one in Berlin, one in Paris, and the other one's in Spain somewhere. I don't remember exactly where it was going to be, maybe Madrid or something. Do you feel, either one of you two, that we'd be able to support 4 more teams? Now, mind you, keep this in mind, think of the away games. Think if you're a West Coast team like the Lakers or the Clippers or something, and you have to travel to Europe.
It'd be a long way out.
You know what I mean? So what are your feelings on that? Or do you think it should just be centralized right here in America and a little bit in Canada?
Well, if you go out to places like London, Berlin, you could be finding undiscovered talent. As far as that, for the West Side team or for the Western Side teams, that is a long flight to get the whole way over there. I feel like it'd be a positive thing to happen.
See, it'd be interesting because if you had I'm a big fan of Cleveland Cavaliers. Not LeBron James, the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I would think if my team flew out there, if you have 4 pro teams, that would be your road trip right there. You could do a home stand for a couple games, and then one of your road trips would be going over there and going to each city. But that'd be a tough turnaround, because it'd make you wonder how would the back-to-back games go and stuff like that. What time off would you need? So if you were the Golden State Warriors, you make that flight over there. That's a long flight. that's a little bit different than flying to a couple states over.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious how it would take fatigue-wise, And what about those players? Think of it this way, we're talking about our teams going there just for a couple games. What about those teams? They can't just play each other all the time.
Yeah.
So would they be flying
a very
here?
small conference,
Yeah, that's exactly that.
Yeah, because you have the East and the West Conference. What's that going to be?
Well, because they were talking about making them a division. So my guess would be that they would take a few of the East Coast teams, put them in the Western Conference, and put the European teams in the East. Would be my guess.
Yeah.
But my question is, they could only play each other so many times. So just think of the road trips for the European teams. Would that be fair? There's 30 teams here. Let's say there's 4 teams there. The teams here in the States would stay here in the States most of the time because that's where the majority of the teams would be located. Imagine them, though. There'd only be 4 major teams going into it. So would they have to come here for every road trip? Every week, would they be in America and away from home? That wouldn't... I'm curious how the dynamics would go with that, But they were saying that they have the arenas built in a few of the cities already. They're huge, and they sell out every time. But they already have their own basketball leagues also. So... It's not necessarily the NBA trying to take over the leagues that are already there as much as it is just coexisting, I think. But as Mike said, I wonder if the talent, we're already recruiting out of the other countries as
have
it is.
China.
Exactly.
Where else we have?
Turkey and all kinds of places.
Just everywhere. That undiscovered talent. And it could be because of their location that they haven't been able to get out there. There could be the next superstar right now in London. Just sitting in London, but not able to get out because of it, the expansion.
A good starting ground for them would be to look at UEFA right now. The Premier League, the English Premier League, Spanish Premier, for soccer.
or football.
And how the football.
Football.
But what they do is the UEFA Cup, and that's pretty much a final. They have like separate games throughout the season, and then at the end they play for that cup. And it's teams from every single league in Europe.
Yeah.
So I mean, it could go that way too. I mean, there's many different ways it could be done.
See, that's kind of cool. It makes me wonder though, like, here's the thing: if we put 4 teams in Europe, I can't imagine they're not going to get more. And then what if they end up expanding a few more teams? In the next 10 years, 15 years, a few more teams after that. You never know, man. 20 years down the line, there may be the East Conference might be the teams in America, and the West Conference might be teams here, and the East Conference might be teams there, or vice versa. And when does it stop? I mean, will we start putting teams in China? I'm curious, how big would you want the league? Because as a Cavs fan, I enjoy watching them play certain games, like against Detroit and against Washington and stuff. I hate those teams, and I enjoy when my team gets to play them a few times a year. But if you start expanding, we're at 30 teams now. You put a few more here, a few more there throughout the years. If you have 50, 60 teams down the line, it makes you wonder what's going to happen with rivalries and talent. And what about the draft? Would you? Because it's only 2 rounds now.
Yeah, that would be.
So what would you do
people.
if you have 4 or 5 more teams? Do you add another round of the draft? Because there's more teams picking, or do you have to be that much better of a college basketball player to get into the league and still keep it at 2 rounds? I mean, I'm just curious how that's going to affect,
And then it makes you wonder if the seasons will be different as far as how many games they play a week each team. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Like, again, referring back to soccer, they play almost 365 days out of the year. They start in August and they end in June. It goes all year round. And it makes you wonder if that's the way it'll start going if it were to add, like, a bunch of more teams.
And also thinking, too, I mean, the soccer players, for them to go all year round like that, I mean, that is a lot. Some of these NBA teams are playing how many times a week?
Yeah, I mean,
for them
up
to have to go a year or
5
something
times.
like that, a little bit less, that's a lot. That's a lot on their bodies.
Body.
They're extremely fatigued. I don't know if that would last.
I'm curious, I'm just curious how it would go physically, for the players. Or would they expand the schedule? Now, the season picks up in October, give or take, ends in roughly June. So would they expand the season, maybe have a couple more days in between games? So let's say they would start the season in, let's say, September, and then make the season go till July. And then instead of having, like you mentioned, 4 or 5 games a week sometimes, even 3, 4, 5 games, whatever it is, maybe only having 2 or 3 games per week because you have to travel to Europe. I wonder if could they combat the fatigue by expanding the schedule with more resting time in between. I mean, there's a lot of different factors to look into.
Kind of like football. There's maybe like 1 or 2 games a week.
Right.
I mean, they could make it to where there's less games for that reason, for rest and fatigue and things like that.
Yeah, if they're going to expand the season.
I'm curious. I'd really like to see a couple expansion teams in Europe. I honestly would, especially because the attendance is so high. And it doesn't even matter what teams that go over there. It doesn't have to be like some 2 superstar teams. It doesn't have to be like the Heat and the Pacers over there playing. No, I mean, it could be literally any 2 teams. Yeah. And it still sells out. And people stay till the very end of the game. Mm-hmm. So I think a few teams over there would be successful. Now I don't know how it would be. Would it combat the basketball leagues that are over there now? I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that'd go, but it's just something to think about, and just expansion and how far is too far. And another thing I was thinking too is teams like the Milwaukee Bucks and stuff like that. No offense against Milwaukee, but would it make sense to take teams like that and bring it into stronger cities like Seattle? I mean, I would love to see another team in Seattle.
I would too.
And it's just, it makes you wonder, the bottom feeder teams. And unfortunately, my Cleveland Cavaliers are there a lot of times. Should you make it a point where if you don't win or make the playoffs or something in a certain amount of time, you get moved? Yeah. I'm curious because
it puts pressure on that team for sure. So
that's what I'm wondering. Yeah, because my Cavs, we had LeBron for so long. We were good for those 7 years or so. But now it's just last few seasons have been bad, and it's just how long do you let teams like that go before you start making a change and stuff like that? I mean, there's a lot of things you could talk about. A lot of things that the new commissioner will have on his table when he gets in there and really starts breaking things down and seeing what to do. But do you guys have anything else to add? I mean, as far as expansion over to Europe?
I would just like to see what happens. I'd also like to see an actual interview with the NBA commissioners and just everyone in charge, and actually hear their thoughts and just brainstorming about how they would do this.
And the idea probably like planned out, like how is it going to look,
Yeah, all pros, cons, just everything mapped out.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Now, where would you like to see another team, Randy? I mean, I know Seattle, and obviously
Seattle,
Mike and I
for
like the
sure.
Pittsburgh thing. Is there anywhere else?
I just thought about this one, but what about a team in Hawaii? Imagine how great that would
that'd
be.
be kind of cool.
Yeah.
That'd be different,
Honolulu or something.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, even Alaska and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
if we're going to expand to Europe, why can't we expand to places like that? I mean, that's kind of cool, to
Or
think
even
about.
like Costa Rica, they have a lot of talent down there too, so that would be really neat to see
Really.
as well.
That's curious. I mean, another thing I want to mention is if we had European teams, I wonder if they would be run. Would that be American investors or would that be European investors? I mean, where would the money come from? Would the league support that? Would it be like a team owned by the league, run by American, like our people, our officials, or would it be, hey, we're looking to start this here? Is anybody interested? And then
I
some
feel like
big
it would
European.
have to be something mutual. I mean, you bring a team like that over there and say America's in charge of them, and there can be a coexist agreement. Obviously, money's going to play a factor.
Now, would you take, let's say, teams from the league right now and stick with the 30 teams and take 4 teams and move them to those cities? Or do you just start, fresh and come up with 4 brand new teams? Because the reason I say that is because, we live here in North Carolina, and they're going to be taking the Bobcats and turning them into the Hornets. And I really think that's going to revitalize, the team. I really think it's going to help their everything. I honestly do. So do you take a team like the Bucks or the Jazz, teams that are horrible right now, and do you put them over there to see if that maybe gives them the spark they need, to start coming back and making that climb?
That sounds like a really good idea.
It's
actually.
interesting, man.
I mean, because if you think about it, if you add 4 more teams, I mean, the amount of money it will cost to make those plane trips, all
The whole
through
way
the
across.
whole way across for
That's
the
not.
whole
Yeah,
season.
we're not talking a short distance.
No, this is like a good 2 days possibly to fly over there from the West Coast.
Right.
I mean,
That's
it's
a
a lot
long
of
trip.
money. I mean, or a good example would be someone like the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, granted they make the flights to the West Coast and stuff like that, but imagine if how much it would really cost for them to do it. And I don't know how their financials are, but if you think about it,
That's the thing. That's a team that, I mean, even like my Cavs, in a few more seasons, if they don't make the playoffs and stuff, do you consider taking some of the bottom feeder teams and moving them over? Rebranding them. You'll still keep the same players and stuff. Almost like when the Browns moved to Baltimore. Do you keep the same players and stuff, just rebrand it? New logo, new team and stuff. I'm just curious. Do you keep the same amount of teams and expand into Europe doing it that way, or do you add those expansion teams to the league already? So let's say it would go from 30 teams to 34. I'm curious. There's a lot of different options there that the league has to explore and see where the investors are coming from, because I'm sure there's investors everywhere all over the world that would love to have. Right, that would love to have an NBA team. Exactly. So I don't know. Is there anything you guys want to add?
I would just like to see what would happen. Like I said, my brainstorming thing, I'd love to see officials actually talk about it.
Same here.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If any of our listeners, if anybody does listen to this, enjoys this little talk, feel free to leave in the comment section what you want us to talk about, because we enjoy talking sports, and
Please subscribe.
yeah, subscribe and like our channel. Even if you don't like it, just give us a little bit of love. But yeah, man, just leave or email us, whatever. Just hit us up and let us know what you want us to talk about, because I think it'd be a lot of fun to do this. Just keep talking about just different things. It doesn't even have to be basketball. We can really talk about whatever, But
That would
just
get
let us.
interesting.
Exactly. Just let us know what you all are interested in, and you have yourselves a fantastic day.